Hi, welcome to Hillcrest Sermons, growing together.
Show us your heart's delight.
My name's Tim. I do want to say welcome to you. I get to teach here at Hillcrest, and it is one of my favorite things to do, to get to unpack Scripture with you all. We are continuing our Graves into Gardens series, and so if you have your Bible with you, which is always great to bring, I invite you to open up to John chapter 2 is where we're going to be. John is one of the four biographies of Jesus. Way to the right, it's in the New Testament. It's after Luke and before Acts is where we're going to be this morning. And thank you, Rachel, for reading that for us. So before we get to John 2, though, I just want to share a little something I got to do about a week ago. So our small group, one of the things that we do every year is we call it a Christmas dinner, but this year we didn't do it at Christmas, so we just call it our fancy dinner. So we had our small group fancy dinner last week. And so for our small group fancy dinner, one of the things we do is we draw a course of the meal and a country. Each person, each couple does. And so like Turkish appetizers and Brazilian soup and German salad and Greek main dish and Indian dessert. And then each couple, they bring that thing, and then we light candles and get babysitters and wear, our Sunday clothes and just kind of have this fun and talk about the year and just reflect on God's goodness in our lives. And so that was last Saturday. So we're having this meal, and I want to juxtapose a conversation and then kind of the meal itself. So one of the things we were talking about during the meal was, you're just chatting. And so this show, anybody, Chris Hemsworth, Limitless? Has anybody? Okay, I haven't seen it. So one person has, and Talia, you seem very excited about it. So I don't know a lot about it, but they were kind of telling me about it, and it's like all about like maximizing your life and seeing how far you can, like how long humans can live, and how much you can push your brain capacity, and what the limits of the human body, and this whole thing. And what it reminded me of, maybe it's a nice show. I like Thor and everything, but what it reminded me of is there's this kind of like the spirit of our age, like this kind of idea in our culture right now of like maximizing life. Live as long as you can, hack your body, get the most out of every moment, like be as efficient as possible, have as healthy body as possible, like have as much pleasure out of each experience as possible, like max, because here and now is all you get. So you got to get the most out of it you can, right? This is kind of this is in the air of the culture we swim in. So there's that, but then there's that idea that is represented by that show for me. But then there's just the meal itself. And the meal itself, like there was no sense of we better maximize this. It was a gift to be received. It was like my wife Christy started by just saying like meals like this point us ahead to the kingdom of heaven. Like this is an image of the kingdom of heaven. And we opened by prayer of just receiving these friendships as a gift from God, and we enjoyed it, and there was joy, but it was, in the sense, it pointed us on towards who God is. The kind of the what we experienced that night actually reminded me of some things that C.S. Lewis said in his book, The Four Loves. And it's a couple long quotes, but I really like them, so I'm going to read all of it. So this is an image of at least what I felt I tasted that night. Lewis says, in a perfect friendship, this appreciative love is, I think, often so great and so firmly based that each member of the circle feels, in his secret heart, humbled before all the rest. Sometimes he wonders what he is doing there among his betters. He is lucky beyond desert to be in such company, especially when the whole group is together, each bringing out all that is best, wisest, or funniest in all the others. Those are the golden sessions, when 4 or 5 of us, after a hard day's walking, have come to our inn, when our slippers are on, our feet spread out towards the blaze, our drinks at our elbows, when the whole world and something beyond the world opens itself to our minds as we talk. Life, natural life, has no better gift to give. Who could have deserved it? And then Lewis continues on. He says, but for a Christian, there are, strictly speaking, no chances. A secret master of the ceremonies has been at work. Christ, who said to the disciples, "Ye have not chosen me, but I have chosen you," can truly say to every group of Christian friends, "You have not chosen one another, but I have chosen you for one another." The friendship is not a reward for our discrimination and good taste in finding one another out. It is the instrument by which God reveals to each the beauties of all the others. They are no greater than the beauties of 1,000 other men, but by friendship God opens our eyes to them. They are, like all beauties, derived from him, and then in good friendship increased by him through the friendship itself, so that it is his instrument for creating as well as for revealing. At this feast, it is he who has spread the board, and it is he who has chosen the guests. It is he we may dare to hope, who sometimes does and always should preside. Let us not reckon without our host. And I think for me, there's this just kind of contrast, like a world kind of empty of God, a world empty of deeper spiritual connection, that this is here now is all we got, we better maximize it. And this other image of like a world as a gift from God, to be received as a gift, for God to be noticed, to say thank you, God. And one has this pressure attached to it, and one just has this like freedom of joy and delight. And for me, these two things are held in contrast. And today I want to look at that passage that Rachel read, John 2, because I think it leads us into the second, into this life as a gift to be received to joy and to point us ahead to the goodness of God. So let's look at that, John 2 now, because I think it points to this. We're in this Graves into Garden series. We're looking at the biography of Jesus called John. And we're trying, as we go through the book of John, we're trying to kind of lay out what the good news of Jesus is all about. And so these first couple weeks, if I had to summarize last week what Hannah was saying and today what I'm saying, we're trying to capture life as God intended it to be. Last week, Hannah said that Jesus is the image of what God always intended human flourishing to look like. And today, it's a kind of a similar thing, like the goodness of life as God intended it to be. What this flourishing life God intended for us as people made it in his image. And so with that in mind, let's look at this account from John 2, the life that God intends to give to us. So it begins, John chapter 2, verse 1. We read, "On the third day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding." And just kind of to picture, this is ancient rural Galilee, a small village in rural Galilee, and these weddings, these are kind of rural peasants. They're not wealthy people, but weddings were when you celebrated. Most weddings were like 7 days long, and the whole community was invited. It was this feast of joy. So they're at this wedding. Verse 3, "When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, 'They have no more wine.'" The bride and groom were obligated to host this wedding feast well. Providing wine was part of that. And this problem had arisen for them. And so Jesus' mom, Mary, says it to Jesus, "They have no more wine." And then Jesus replies, "Women, why do you involve me?" Jesus replied, "My hour has not yet come." And so Jesus' initial response is there's a resistance because my hour has not yet come. There's this recognition that when I start doing my mighty public deeds, a clock is ticking that ends at the cross. Mary, mother, you don't know totally what you're asking. To do this starts me on a journey, and I know where it ends. His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jewish faith at this time, it kind of developed this set of rituals or kind of human traditions about ritual purity and ritual cleansing, and these stone jars were used for that. And Jesus said to the servants, he said, "Fill the jars with water." And so they filled them to the brim. And then he told them, now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet. And they did so. And the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. And then he called the bridegroom aside and said, everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now. I'm going to pause there. But I just want to take a step back. This is the first mighty deed, the first miracle that Jesus does in the book of John, the biography of Jesus called John. And this is like, take a step back and just think about this for a moment. The first mighty deed the Son of God does on earth is to go to a rural peasant wedding of a young couple, and when they have run out of wine, to make 150 gallons of the best possible wine. Probably the best wine that any human has ever tasted in all of human history. This is where Jesus started. His first mighty deed. Does that strike you as a little surprising? And what do you think Jesus did after he created this wine? Do you think he sat back in the corner and folded his arms? And he said, I wonder who will fall for my trap. Let's see who starts having a little too much fun here. Do you think this is what he is doing? Or do you think he made it to feast and to dance and to sing and to celebrate with his disciples and with his mother and with this young couple and with the extended community? You think, yeah, he was the host. He was the real host who brought the best possible joy to this wedding. Now, how does that strike you? When you think of, if you got to choose what Jesus' first mighty deed would be, would you choose this? Let's be honest, part of me is like, Jesus, that's a little small, like injustice and sickness and death and like, why? Like, or is it feels dangerous or too extravagant or not big enough or like what? Like, what's your reaction to this? And there's something about it. Yes, Jesus, he heals blindness and he heals cripples and he drives out demons and he raises the dead. He does these healing and fixing things. But the first thing isn't actually about healing this deep wound in reality. It's just bringing joy, the enjoyment of life. And I think it points to something about the heart of God. Like, God made us for joy. And yet we live in a hard world and there is sin and sickness and death, but God made us for joy. Jesus ultimately is the joy bringer. And the enjoyment of real life here and now. There's these ordinary things, a wedding, dancing, singing, eating, drinking. Jesus shows up and says, enjoy it. And then John, the narrator, he summarizes what has happened here. In verse 11, this is his commentary. He says, what Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. There's this, John, the author, says, if you want to understand what's happening here, this mighty deed, this provision of wine for this wedding celebration, it's a sign. And a sign simply means that it points to something more. It's more than what it is in and of itself. It points ahead to some other reality. Who God is, what God's kingdom is like, what the heart of Jesus is like. It points a sign, and it's a sign that reveals his glory. And we've talked before about what glory is. Glory isn't glowiness. It's not that Jesus was literally shining. Glory is about his essence, his character, like his deepest heart. It's a sign that points to his deepest heart. It points, what is the heart of God like? He is the ultimate host of the banquet. He is the great joy bringer. It's a sign that points to his glory, and his disciples put their faith in him. They saw the sign, they saw what it pointed to, that him is the great joy bringer, and they trusted in him. A sign that points to his glory, that leads to trust. And I want to take a step back, and I want to kind of look at this story, because like I said, these first couple messages in the series are pointing to like the life that God intended for us. And I think in John chapter 2, we get an image, a picture of God's heart for what life was meant to be for us. This heart, the God who made us to enjoy this life and have this life be a place that becomes signs that point to his character that we live out and trust. I want to look at this. You could say it this way. There's a sense that what Jesus did for the water, Jesus also did for the wedding. Jesus took the water, he took ordinary water, and he made it into the best wine ever. And Jesus took an ordinary wedding, and he took this ordinary wedding and he made it into an image, an everlasting image of his character as the joy bringer. He transformed it. He transformed both the water and the wedding. What he did for the stone jars, he took empty stone jars and he filled them up with his best wine ever. What he did for the stone jars, he did for this young couple's marriage ceremony. He took the stone jars and he filled them with the best wine. He took this young couple's marriage ceremony and he filled it up with an image that points to his glory. Their wedding became a living image of Jesus' character for eternity after. He transformed it. You could say it this way, that God, like in both of these things, that he made us to enjoy life here and now, but also to have these to be places that are transformed by him. Like he wanted the people at the wedding to enjoy the wine, to enjoy the dancing, to enjoy the feasting. He wanted the couple to enjoy their wedding. He made us to enjoy our lives. You were made for joy. You were made to enjoy friends and meals and skiing and sailing and mountain biking and poetry and music and painting and sculpting and building and carpentry and kissing and hugging and wrestling and tickling and cake and ice cream and soccer and hiking and weddings and wine and dancing and feasting and marriage. Like these are, God says, I made you to enjoy the world that I've put you in. You could say, in a sense, there's this sense that all of creation is a cup, a chalice, that in the beginning was full of the glory of God, and God intends to again, in the end, fill it with his glory. Every aspect of our ordinary lives is meant to be a cup that could be filled with a sign of his glory, with his presence. And that all of life is meant to be enjoyed, but all of life are meant to be places that become signs pointing to his character, his glory. That it's not just this one meal, this one wedding that's meant to point to Jesus, but that every meal with your friends could become an image of what the messianic banquet is going to be like. That every marriage ceremony done in the presence of Jesus is meant to be an image of God's heart for his people and the day when heaven and earth come together. That all of it is meant to be received as gift and transformed. I want to talk about this another way. I think for some of this is a hard idea to get, and I understand if you're like, Tim, I just don't understand what you're talking about. That's okay. I get that a lot. But I want to talk about this from a couple other angles to just try and help us get this. Another way to talk about it. So in a lot of parts of the spiritual life, there's usually two sides of the road we can fall off onto. two ditches, two wrong directions we could go. And I think what we see here is, I would say it this way. If the road that we are called to walk is to receive life as a gift, to enjoy life and have it transformed into a sign of his glory, if that's what we're meant to, that's the road. I think one way we can fall off is what I would call the life-denying ditch. The refuse to enjoy ditch. And this is, I think sometimes we see this in religious communities. Kind of like, the idea of enjoying life is dangerous. Not feasting and dancing and singing, not too much here. Sports and writing and poetry and literature, be careful with this stuff. And probably if you're really unhappy, you're probably really where God wants you to be. That kind of this distrust of enjoying life, right? And once again, I know sin and suffering is part of our world, but there's this life-denying ditch, right? This is one of the ditches that we can fall into. And what we see in this, story is I think God says, no, I made you to enjoy the world I put you in. Dancing and singing and feasting. Life-denying ditch. The other ditch I would call the life-worshiping ditch. This life is all we have. The here and now is our only chance for happiness and being. I worship it. And maybe in this ditch, the life-worshiping ditch is probably more of what we get in kind of our modern cultural moment. It's probably more the Bellingham ditch, right? I need every day on the mountain I can get, and I'm going to do every single ride at Galbraith, and I'm going to go to every brewery and I'm going to have the perfect, I'm going to hack my romance life and have the perfect, I'm going to maximize it, live as long as I can. Here and now is my chance to find life-worshiping ditch. And also, Jesus says, no, it's not this world is not all you got. This world is actually meant to point you, it's a gift. You're meant to receive it as a gift. And let it point you on to me and my kingdom. And there's something, Jesus says that it's not actually denying life, it's not actually worshiping, it's actually receiving it as a gift. I've put you in this world to receive as a gift, every part of it as a gift. And to return it to me, to trust with that, to let it point you on to me, to let it reflect the values of who I am and my kingdom. That is how you're meant to live. Every meal, every wedding, every time you're laughing with friends, every book you read, this is what your life is meant, how you're meant to receive it. That all creation is meant to be a cup that could be filled with his presence, with his glory. Let me take your cooking and let every moment be a reminder of how I spiritually feed you. Let me take your welcoming people into your home and let it be an image of how I host you and make home for you. Let me take your dancing and let it point you to my beauty. Let me take your studying and let it be places where you can love me with your mind. Let me take your speed and strength and that you can take pleasure in how I've made you. Let every single part, let your friends and your laughter be reminders of how I, Jesus, sat and laughed with my friends, and I've made you for joy. Let every single part of your life, the ordinary parts of your life, be moments that we receive as a gift that point on to Jesus and his kingdom. There's this old movie, Chariots of Fire. Any Chariots of Fire? Eric Liddell? Yeah. Oh, well done, people. There you go. Very proud of you all. So Eric Liddell, it's based on a true story, this Olympic runner at the beginning of the century. And there's these two quotes there that are contrasted. There's Eric Liddell, who's this Olympic runner who very much receives his running as a gift from God. And there's this other runner, Harold Kushner, who he approaches it in this maximized pleasure. Here and now is all I've got. And I want to contrast the two quotes. So the one, when speaking about the 100-yard dash, the maximize it, this is all I've got. He says it this way. He says, I will raise my eyes and look down that corridor, 4 feet wide, with only 10 seconds to justify my whole existence. That's all I got. And then Eric Liddell says about his running, he speaks it this way. He says, I believe God made me for a purpose, but he also made me fast. And when I run, I feel his pleasure. Can you feel the difference of living in those two different worlds? One is what I believe God made us for. I believe when God made this world, he made us to enjoy it, to receive it as a gift. He made you to receive your life as a gift and have it to be a place where you feel his pleasure over you. What does this mean for us? What does this mean for us this week? In one sense, I was trying to think like practically, okay, what does it look to live into this? And I mean, the thing we're talking about today is such a deep shift of how we perceive all different parts of our life. It feels like a really big thing. How do we kind of make it practical? And so this is maybe one way to think about kind of making it practical for our lives this week. I'm sure there's other ways that you could come up with, and I encourage you to do so in your small group and with your housemates. But I think one way to think about it would be, where in your life do you feel pressure right now? When I think about that wedding moment, I think about the couple hosting the wedding. There's the sense of, we have to host a 7-day wedding for all our family and friends, and I do not have enough wine on my own, and I don't know what I'm going to do about it. I have run out of wine. My own abilities and strength are not enough here. And now I'm going to be shamed in front of everyone I know. And so maybe a question would be, where is that place in your life where you feel like, I need to do this, and I don't have enough wine on my own, and now everybody's going to see? Where is that place that you feel pressure? Where's that place where you feel like, I have 10 seconds to justify my whole existence? And I would encourage you to identify that and to take some time this afternoon, this morning, even as we worship. We're going to go into communion in a moment there, maybe in a quiet moment later this week, to reflect on, what is Jesus saying to you about that? Because I know what the voice of Jesus doesn't sound like. The voice of Jesus doesn't sound like, yes, you do have 10 seconds to justify your whole existence. That does not sound like the voice of Jesus. We need to listen for his voice in that. Because my guess is his voice is going to sound something like this. Just give me your ordinary water. Just give it to me. Trust me with this wedding. Give me the water that you got. Let's see what I can do with it. Give me what you got. And let's see how I can transform it. And just take pleasure in what we do with it together. Your life is a gift. You don't have to justify your own existence. I've made you for a purpose. Just return it to me. My guess he's going to say things like, hey, you know that group of friends? I just made you to be a light there. Just be a light. That workplace, I didn't make you to be savior of the world. Just work to build my kingdom values into the workplace you're in. That thing you're studying, yeah, you don't have to justify your whole existence by the way that class goes. Just love me with your mind. You know what that means. This relationship, it's not your job to save it. Just trust it to me. Just show my love and my light in it and trust the outcome to me. Give me your water. I'll transform it. Let it point ahead to me. Where's that place of pressure? Listen to what Jesus might be saying to you about it. So we're going to go to communion now, and I think, and I want to invite you even to take that question into this moment of communion this morning. When I think about communion, in many ways, this is one more image of the same thing we've been talking about. You think about, we've been talking about, hey, like this whole, our lives and the wedding at Cana, God made us to have the ordinary things of life to be received as a gift and to be transformed into signs pointing to his glory. Like this is what life is about. Well, guess what this is about? These are ordinary things to be received as a gift, but it's more than just bread And it's more than just a cup. These are places where Jesus is the host, and we are spiritually fed by his Spirit with us. It becomes something more. I mean, in a sense, there's a sense of like, this is what God intended for all creation in the beginning. A cup to receive his presence, his glory. And this is what he's going to do in the end. And the new heavens and new earth come together. He's going to say, all the earth is full of my glory. And the way that sin and death and evil has torn this apart and made this difficult, the communion that reminds us of Jesus' death, this is where Jesus knits these things back together, where the places in our life that I'm like, God, I can't see how this is meant to point to you. He says, bring it to my table because this is why I came. I came to drink your cup of suffering so that you could drink my cup of joy. Like, this is me knitting these things back together. But in the same way, at this table, we receive the ordinary bread and the ordinary cup. And it gets full of his Spirit, and it points on to his glory, his heart, his self-sacrificing heart. This is what he desires to do in the lives of every one of us. And we don't force it. We don't make it happen. We just come. And even those places in your life where you feel that pressure this morning, for you to say, Jesus, I'm bringing to the table this morning. I'm bringing this ordinary part of my life. I'm bringing this place so I feel pressure. Would you help? I'm bringing my water to you. Will you transform it? Will you meet me in it? Will you make it a sign that points to your glory, that leads others to trust of you? The communion table.
Thanks for listening. For more info, visit hcbellingham.com and join us any Sunday, 9 and 11 a.m.